This is an RP Blonde movie review.
RP Blonde, here I am, back on the silver screen, back for more reviews. Back for more, hopefully some quality, if I can find some. This time I am reviewing the Stephen King's latest movie, It. Unfortunately, I was unable to do Stephen King's The Dark Tower, but at least I am going over the movie It. In the modern world of literature, only two authors have been major contributors and influences on Hollywood. 90% of most movies made from the late 70s up to now that have been based on literature are either from Elmore Leonard or Stephen King. The works of Stephen King, from his books as well as short stories, have been the most sought-after source of material that's been constantly flowing to hit any screen, big or small, since 1976. The first was Carrie from 1976 in theaters with John Travolta and Sissy Spacek. Then it was remade for TV in 2002. The better of these two treatments would have to be the 1976 theatrical version. Then came Salem's Lot in 1979 as a TV miniseries. Later was made again as a TV miniseries in 2004 with Rob Lowe. The better of these two definitely has to be the 1979 version. The next year, in 1980, we get The Shining on the big screen with Jack Nicholson. Later, that was remade as a TV miniseries in 1997. The better of these would have to be the 1980 film. Then the first Stephen King production turned franchise, meaning spawning many sequels, came in 1984 to theaters with Children of the Corn. Eventually, Children of the Corn was remade in 2009 as a low-budget direct-to-video film. The better of these two, I have to go with the 1984 film. On to 1986, in theaters, we have Maximum Overdrive, starring Emilio Estevez. He is Charlie Sheen's brother. Then it was eventually remade for, I'm not sure on this, either direct-to-video or might have been a TV movie known as Trucks. The better here is Maximum Overdrive of the two versions. And of course, Trucks was made and released in 1997. At the end of the decade, the 80s, production was started on the next TV miniseries of Stephen King's works called It. It hit the TV in 1990, starring Richard Thomas and Tim Curry. Now in 2017, here comes It to the big screen. Have to say it, I'm pretty good in keeping track of the movies and the works from Stephen King. I guess out of about 80 or so movies, when you have about 10 movies from 5 stories, 2 apiece, one for the big screen and one for television, you will have to excuse the Salem Lot because both versions were for TV. That the other 5 stories must be considered significant and important works, probably the most celebrated and revered classics in the Stephen King collection, along with a few others also considered classic like Christine, Pet Sematary, The Dead Zone, and etc. The television movie It in 1990, for what I can remember, started with what you might call a prologue of a group of kids in the small town of Derry, Maine. This prologue goes for about 20 minutes or so. Then the story jumps ahead around 20 years to where everybody in the group is over 30 with families and jobs. And one by one, they are all called upon to come back to Derry. The story primarily goes from there between the group of adults and It, otherwise known as Pennywise the Clown. The clown in the miniseries is played by no other than Tim Curry, He's well known for the Rocky Horror Picture Show, as well as the hotel manager in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. This 2017 theatrical version is very different. The entire movie, 2 hours and 15 minutes, has the group in their early years as kids, but at the end, we find out that there will be a sequel. Apparently the story is far from over. So which means with 2 movies, you're looking at over 4 hours of this treatment of the It story. Which leads me to ask the following. When you have a 4-hour television miniseries from 1990, why do we need a 2-part theatrical release that spans from anywhere from 4 to 4.5 hours? I honestly believe that the screenplay for this either got away from the writers or they decided to expand the story more thinly on the characters just so they could match the size, meaning length, like Peter Jackson. What I mean is that it takes too much time to tell a story from the novel. For example, take a fantasy like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings from Peter Jackson, where these 2 novels are split up into 3 parts. These 3 parts separately are a movie. So 3 movies are telling the story of The Hobbit, and 3 more movies are telling the story of The Lord of the Rings. Each movie averages about 3 hours in length. So for the Hobbit novel, it's taking just over 9 hours to tell that story. The same for The Lord of the Rings. So that's the total time between the 2 movies is 18 plus hours of screen time. Absolutely absurd, ridiculous, pointless, and obviously exhausting. I don't care how long any novel is, but every King story has to be told every King story has to be told in one theatrical movie. Look at The Green Mile, a long movie about 3 hours, but at least the story is told in one movie. I really do believe that any film expert or a professor out there would tell anyone interested in writing for Hollywood, don't take a story, especially a novel, and make it more than it needs to be. Every book out there can be brought to the screen in one 2-hour movie. There is no need to take 2 or more movies to tell a story from a novel. It's funny that for years, since the beginning of cinema, filmmakers have managed to tell stories from books in one movie. The only good thing about it is the special effects, as well as the use of the clown's teeth and mouth. I'm not bothering to say much more about this movie because this movie is scarred by 4 things. Number 1, there really is not much of a climactic ending. All we get is an unsatisfying one. So they inform us about the sequel that's going to come to continue on. Number 2, what is with and why so much teenage bullying is going on here? This bullying is way too aggressive, and I don't think Mr. Keene himself has it like this in his story. I've seen bullying plenty of times over the years in TV and film, but this is too excessive and too much. Number 3, what is with these very young kids swearing like a sailor or a trucker or a rapper? The swearing is non-stop and way too much. Between the excessive bullying and swearing, I'm surprised that the censors didn't push to have this production shut down. The TV movie did not have any of this, meaning the swearing or bullying at all. And finally, number 4, which one of these 2 versions of It is more closer to the Stephen King novel in terms of what he wrote? Really, because I don't know and can't figure out which is more true and more accurate in terms of telling of this story without actually sitting down and reading the novel. I'm going to go straight to my rating here. It's only going to get and deserve only 1 star out of 4. Very poorly done. Why in the hell was this number 1 at the box office for like 4 weeks in a row? It is so true that people in this country out there are pouring or throwing away their hard-earned money on movie garbage and sewage like this, as well as all these animated movies that have been taking over and dominating the theater since about 2003, 2004. All these people out there, it's very obvious you know nothing about film, and you won't be able to find quality entertainment in film if it came up on you and bit you in the rear. RP saying, I'm done. And good God, this is almost a dead blonde in the sand, but I'm giving it 1 star. See you next time. Still looking for greatness.